to fetch money to maintain the facility. Even when government pulls out, it's support.
The
skepticism of the Muslim leadership comes at a time when the Muslim Martyrs' Day celebrations has been pushed from 1st to 7th June, while the Uganda Muslim Supreme Council will commemorate their 50 years of existence on the 10th of June. Juma Kiria, NTV.
All right, many thanks, Juma Kiria, for that report. Of course, that brings us the perspective of the Muslim matters and the question of the fact that aspects regarding the Muslim matters have been sidelined. Now, the martyrs that were Muslim are believed to have been martyred or executed as early as 1874. That is more than a decade before the martyrs that we do celebrate today on June the 3rd were actually martyred. Now, the question
is around 1876.
1876, yeah. The question of why this particular aspect of the martyrs narrative has not been well told is, of course, down to a lot of issues that me as Chris Higenyi and we as NTV cannot again and put our fingers on. But we do have with us Sheikh Siraj Kifampa. He is from Jamia Dawat Sarafia. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Welcome to Morning at NTV.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure always being here.
Indeed.
And I'm so delighted to be here. Secondly, the Art of Work studio here that, you know, it's my first time to be in this studio.
All right.
I've been in the previous one. But I thank you for the work that has been done here.
We are living up to our name, the #1 TV station in the whole world,
yes,
without a doubt.
For sure.
Mr. Kifampa, as per the story we read, 200 million is not enough for the Muslim fraternity to celebrate the martyrs. And what do they mean when they say they do not believe in the same martyrs?
One, the money is not the issue to us, but the doctrine of the principle of celebrating the martyrs. In Islam, martyrs are there. And it's one of the ways that are encouraged for someone to end his earthly life. For example, when someone dies in the way of fighting for the cause of Islam, that is the best way of someone dying. However, celebrating a dead person for us in Islam is not there. I'll just give a simple story that is in the Quran, and it will answer all the questions that people have always been having. In chapter 71, verse 23, that is chapter Noah. You know Noah, of the floods and whatever.
That's right.
He's dedicated a full chapter in the Quran. Before his coming as a prophet, there was a community that used to worship God, in the true sense of worshiping him. Now, while going to the synagogue or to the praying place, they used to go with their children or kids. Time came, they aged up and died, the elders. The kids remained behind, and they suggested that for us, for our spirits to be increased, the faith to be increased, let's have portraits or pictures of our fathers put before us in the synagogue, that whenever we'll be coming for prayer, we'll look at these pictures, our faith will increase, remembering what they used to do. So they had the pictures and put them in the synagogue. Then they also used to come with their children. So they died. When they died, their children said, no, there is none that our forefathers were worshipping, but these pictures that we're having here. So they began worshipping those pictures as gods. Then God sent Noah, telling them that you should not be worshipping those pictures. You should not be worshipping those idols, but worship the God those people used to worship.
I do not think the Catholics and the Anglicans are worshipping these martyrs. They are only acknowledging of the sacrifice they actually made, dying for their faith. They are not worshipping them.
You know, that's a controversial. That is a controversial topic that I wouldn't go into. Me, I'm just explaining the Islamic perspective. That for us as Muslims, we believe that martyrdom is the best way of one ending the earthly life. However, someone who has died is dead. He has no benefit for the one alive.
All right,
but the one who is alive can benefit the one who is dead by praying for him.
Sheikh Kifampa, what I gather is what has appear to be a mis-explanation of things by generations, including those that didn't tell their children about the idols that they were worshipping, to the extent that the children began to imagine the idols were God. So when it comes to marking the day that commemorates or celebrates the Muslim martyrs, what exactly entails what you want?
First of all, we Muslims have got a prophet that we follow.
Peace be upon him.
Peace be upon him. Whatever he teaches is what we're supposed to put in practice.
That's right.
You understand? So he had so many companions that died in the way of Allah. But they were never celebrated at all. Secondly, there are so many big events and special people that would be remembered in Islam. But we do not remember them. Why? Because future generations might turn things into something else.
That's right.
So it was forbid in the beginning not to celebrate anyone for fear of what might happen in the future. So what Muslims do, they only pray for people who died. For example, you saw the imam of the masjid or the mosque in Namgongo, who said that we can organize a prayer and pray for these people. But even then, Islam does not say that you have to organize a function where you pray for them. Wherever you are, if you're in your private prayers, your home, anywhere, you can pray for these people, because Allah can answer your prayer wherever you are. You don't need to organize a function. Because I heard you in the preamble of this, you were talking about the 100 martyrs that were killed, or the 100 people that were killed by Kaka Mutesa. And someone will say it was an insubordination and whatever. The descriptions can differ. However, I'm telling you, if we were to celebrate those 100, so many things will be happening now. You know, things will turn political, and people will come up with so many innovations talking about these people. So the best thing is to pray for them, that whatever cause they died for.
Because I'm looking at the angle of how the Anglicans and the Catholics are political. I don't see it.
For
the Muslims,
I'm just talking about the Muslims.
Because I don't see it on the other side. So how is that fermenting? Because
someone who, you know, I was saying that in your definition, you said some people have argued that probably that was insubordination. It was never unheard of that people can disobey the Kabaka. How can you refuse to pray behind him? How can you refuse to eat the meat that had been slaughtered by him? For them, they consider it to be faith. You understand? And someone will say, no, that was insubordination. They deserve to be punished. So instead of going into the gimmicks and the description of whether it was insubordination or it was faith, we just put it to rest that.
Talk to us about the challenges that have negated the ability of Islam to actually take root, just like Catholicism and Anglicanism, based on the fact that Uganda was once a Muslim state.
Yeah, for sure. Islam,
you understand? But then, with that history in mind, how did the Catholics come and overwhelm? How did the Anglicans overwhelm Islam for you to be sent to a corner?
Now, religion is political in nature as well. That whoever is in control of the political wing controls religion as well.
Indeed.
Or gives it space for it to spread. Islam came here in 1844. It was the first religion to come here. And the Arab traders that came to carry out business here in terms of slave trade and ivory and other things that they used to deal in are the ones that came with this religion. Then it went to the Kabaka's court, and that was in Mutesa Suna first. Then he even began memorizing some of the chapters of the Quran. And some people have argued that he died a Muslim or not. Then Kabaka, his son, Kabaka Mutesa I, he became a Muslim. Now the challenge came, as you heard. For him, he said that in our culture, a Kabaka is not allowed to shed blood of his own in way of circumcision. So it created that contradiction of people refusing to pray behind him. And so he began asking that, did really this religion come here to make my subjects disobey me? So he opted for the white fathers and the Mapelas who came later. So, and he said that these ones, at least, they are not so, you know, when you say
into my power.
What I wanted to say is that Catholicism,
they don't teach disobedience.
Catholicism and Protestantism,
to the established
there
order.
is a way how they leave some issues go. You understand? They are not so strict and they say that, no, this has to happen.
Okay.
You understand?
But
And the Kabaka was
issue.
like, okay, this one is more accommodative than the Muslims.
Yes.
You understand? That's how he...
But even when he got on the other side, he said,
yeah, okay.
these guys don't allow polygamy.
So that's how Catholicism and Protestantism took over. They fought wars, and the missionaries and the whites gave guns to the Kabaka and their believers. So they fought the interreligious wars in Buganda. Muslims were defeated. They went to Chijungte. You know, when you leave, you give space for others to flourish. So that's what happened.
As a vehicle of political expedience is often used. But let me just bring in a bit of context here. The other day I was reading a story about General Mukajanga and his family. The descendants of Mukajanga have reasoned that if June 3rd has become this significant, why don't you attach value, veneration, to the man whose actions brought about this particular steed to happen like so. I do not know what you believe to be the narrative that can be taken, but I question the fact that Buganda Kingdom at the time, and this might appear controversial, should be the one that gives Mukajanga the kind of veneration the family so badly yearns for, because he was a general to the king.
Before I get to that, one, as Muslims, first of all, we request government to develop that place, that piece of land. The land that had 64 like you see the Anglicans and the Catholics have got their land that is, they've developed it. So I think the land that has been encroached upon, the 64 acres of the Muslims, the government should see how to compensate the people who are on that land so that the Muslims can reclaim that land and see how they can put developmental projects on that land. That one we agree, no doubt about that. Secondly, coming to the issue of Mukajanga, putting the other issues aside, I believe that Mukajanga should be celebrated as these matters are being celebrated.
Why?
Why? Because Mukajanga is the one who is making us see what is happening today. If he had not executed the orders of the Kabaka, then who told him to kill them if it so happened? Because I read another narrative somewhere that Mwanga himself never wanted these people killed. That's what I read it somewhere. However,
if young and misled, that's what they say.
If it's true that Mukajanga did this, then he should be celebrated. Because, why do I say so? What we are seeing today is as a result of his actions. Had he not killed these people?
But Mr. Siraj, it's like celebrating Idi Amin or King Herod, who ordered for the killing of Jesus.
You know, things are always objective or subjective. What they say is saying that a terrorist is someone's hero or a liberator, freedom fighter. You understand? What you believe is different from what others believe. But personally, I believe that Mukajanga should be celebrated as well. You're saying that Buganda Kingdom should be doing that for him. But I think this thing had been taken over by government. It had been taken over by the church administration. Even what you see here, Buganda government is nowhere to be seen. You understand? Much as all the matters were Baganda, were their killing was rotating about the kingship and the kingdom, but things had been overtaken by...
It's understandable because on the part of Buganda Kingdom and the monarchy, the event was infamous, okay, for them. It was an act of bloodshed. It was an act of tyranny. So it is infamous. There is very little to celebrate about things that are infamous. But acknowledgement is perhaps something that must be undertaken, especially on the part of the subjects of the king who acted on his orders, not celebration.
I agree. But today, if you say that it is infamous, I think I saw the Katikiro some time back saying that you cannot blame the Kabaka for what he did because these were people who were disobeying the orders of the Kabaka.
They threatened the establishment.
They threatened the establishment. And what did you expect? What? Because today, when people commit acts of treason, they are subject to the same. So there is nothing that you can say that you can blame the Kabaka, or that even Buganda should hide its head in the sand when these things are happening because it was an infamous act. No, personally I believe recognition is okay, and I think it is something that Buganda has to take on, and even government itself. Because if we're serious and if government had invested in this, I'm telling you billions of shillings will be flocking into government coffers. They'll be entering the government coffers because see all these people and the amount of revenue that they can generate for government. So this should be a tourist whatever activity where people are coming from different parts of the world, build hotels, invite people and make it an international whatever, so that people can come and be part of this.
There are people who are of the view that instead of celebrating Mr. Mukajanga, we should just borrow a leaf and learn from that situation and avoid future Mukajangas in Uganda. People just, you know, executing orders without thinking first. And you've seen it happen even in this day and age. There are so many Mukajangas as we speak. They will not question the order. As long as it comes from above. They will just implement it. And to me, I'll be of that view, to learn from those mistakes.
Someone was saying that people are supposed to execute lawful orders. But a soldier who is on duty, who is playing his role, there is no way you're going to blame him. Because the moment he's given an order, he has to implement it. He has to execute it.
You shoot a child that you see that it is wrong.
But today, as we speak,
who is protesting.
As we speak today, there are thousands and thousands of Mukajanga.
Indeed.
And I'm telling you, for as long as they have orders from above, there is no way you're going to avoid that. They will always execute orders that have been passed down. So that means
we've learned nothing from these Martyrs Day, June celebrations every year.
And they've always said that people have learned nothing from history. History has taught us nothing.
Interesting there.
Because you can take a look at how they've been protecting the pilgrims while they were moving on the road. Can that same treatment be accorded to opposition figures?
And they had orders from above to protect them.
We are not borrowing leaf and learning from this situation.
All right, gentlemen, before we go into the political path that may not be very comfortable.
It's inevitable.
June 7th, is it June 7th or 10th when the commemoration for the Muslim Martyrs is planned? We've already talked about the fact that it should not be a celebration of people because it could quickly degenerate into idolatry. So what is going to be done exactly? Do you have an idea? Has it been something that brings together all the Muslims, or it will be one sect or faction pushing it?
I think it is also political, that Uganda Muslim Council wanted to get part of the share from the government in terms of money, but Muslims are not part of that. And I tell you, even the Imam of the mosque, where they plan to even hold it, disowned it, and I think it is more of political, that they wanted to get money, they need recognition, but as Muslims, we cannot celebrate that. And there is nothing that is going to be organized from our side. There's nothing that is going to be organized, but probably Uganda Muslim Council can organize a dua or whatever. But we as Jamia Tabligh Dawah Salafiyya, and we're not part of that.
Mr. Siraj, we celebrate this event every year, June 3rd. People flock this country in millions to witness this very prestigious event. But then moral degeneration is on the increase. Not yesterday, not the year before, not the decade before. We are on a slump.
Can this
what
be
do you
used?
think is actually causing all of this?
Well, I was reading something that the moment the modern state removed religion from politics, this was bound to happen, because religion and politics were intertwined.
Indeed.
You remember the Bourbon monarchy and many other monarchies around, old monarchies around the world. Religion or faith could not be separated from the state. In other words, the kings could always come to consult from the religious leaders for guidance, to be given guidance.
That's right.
When we removed religion from politics and said politics aside, religion aside and politics aside, that's what we're seeing, because politicians always come up with so many crazy ideas and crazy things. What we see today is because people are not faithful, people do not have faith, do not have religion. That's why they're doing whatever they do. Because if you know the teachings of each and every religion, you're not supposed to kill. You're not supposed to harm your neighbor and many other things. When would a politician, if he had faith in that, do the acts that we're seeing today?
Indeed.
So the immorality that we're seeing, the degeneration in morals that we're seeing today is a religion of divorcing religion from politics, and that's what we're seeing.
But then back in the day when religion was intertwined with politics, well, there was bloodshed. You did see all those religious wars because the Anglicans wanted to get into power, the Catholics and the Muslim, all the same.
Those were wars of conquest, and people wanted to have dominance and whatever. You know,
because even the people who fought in those wars, Mr. Siraji, they were not necessarily religious. They were adventurers. People were just seeking an adventure, a fortune. They were seeking fortunes, but they were not necessarily either Muslim, Christian, or anything like that. So
I was saying that those were wars of conquest, that people want to have space, to be known, to let their religion or their belief flourish and spread it the way they want. Even Islam, we have jihads, and the Prophet used to fight so many wars as a way of recognition that you should know that I'm also here. You understand? Those things always happen. But when communities stabilize and they begin to worship and peace prevails, then there is no reason why people should be killing each other. But those who are back in the initial stages. But today we are saying that the world has moved on, and there is no reason why people should be fighting. However, there should always be a line between politics and religion. Indeed. You understand? We don't say that religion should be fully integrated into politics and whatever. So there should be a thin line that separates the two. However, we cannot divorce religion, belief, faith in politics completely.
When religion and politics were intertwined back in the day, there was moral degeneration. There was talk of homosexuality taking root within the Kabaka's palace, especially Kabaka Mwanga. It is said that Saint Charles Lwanga was protecting his pages from the Kabaka because he was making advances towards these subjects. And when they refused to honor the Kabaka's advances, he got angry and he sent them to the gallows. How true is that part of history? Those are allegations that can never be verified. Indeed.
And I don't believe, because Buganda has got a culture. There are norms here that are strongly entrenched within the community. And the Kabaka is the number one promoter of those norms. So I don't believe in that analogy. I don't believe in that analogy that homosexuality had come in and the like. Someone was saying that, I was listening to Dr. Siranya, and she was saying that the reason why it's called Saba Sajja because he homosexualizes people and the kind. So I don't believe in that.
And there's a lot of that literature flying around.
I don't believe
in putting that into perspective.
I don't believe in that because there are so many things that are taboos that in Uganda. Indeed. And just think of those days. If they are taboos to even up to today, when there is a lot that has been changed, or that has changed in Uganda, or in the norms of that culture. What of back in the day when there was still the norms were still very strong? Indeed. So personally, I don't believe in that because history is also subjective. Someone can say this. You know, there was a story that said that as long as the lion does not write the history, the writer of the history will always praise the hunter. So likewise, if the Baganda do not come out to write their history, put this history right, people will always come up with arguments, and there is no way that you can say that they are not correct when they've not provided
all right. Side. Let me ask you a question that is more like a general worldview. When events like June 3rd, Martyrs Day, are celebrated and given all the attention and the pomp and ceremony that comes with them, we do expect that the family unit across the country would be able to excavate all the dividends it can from this particular event. There are parents who might not understand or even appreciate the fact that religion does play a critical role in the shaping of children and, most importantly, ensuring the family runs smoothly. At this particular moment in time, in relation to the deficit of morality in the country and indeed the whole world, because it's not only acting on Uganda, how best can church leaders use June Martyrs Day to be able to begin a new process of recalibrating the family unit in order to ensure that growth of the young ones is on the required path, so that we can get the citizens that we do not want, or rather we get the citizens that we want and do away with those that we do not want, not executing them like Mukajanga, but ensuring that they are trimmed right from an early age.
First of all, I think the world has shrunk, not in the physical size, but as a result of technology. Today, with just a click or with just opening your phone, you can see what is happening in the rest of the world. That's right. So I think church leaders should preach to the parents, always to guide their children on the use of technology, because much of the immorality, much of the degeneration that we're seeing today is as a result of the technology. Mm-hmm. The technology we have today has done us more good than bad. However, the bad of it is also very detrimental. And I think the church today should begin thinking and talking in terms of technology. How best can we leverage from the technology that we have
to reach out to the sheep out there?
You know, Thank you. I was watching someone and he was sharing this story.
Yes.
That the Industrial Revolution that came, the Japanese after the Second World War went to the West and they learned the technology of making cars and other things that you can talk about. When the Africans and other communities went to the West, they did not bother about learning the technology. They picked the morals. That someone goes to the West and picks up on the way of how people put on jeans.
Because that's what we were told. Even back today when the missionaries came around, the education system was teaching us how to be leaders.
But
how you're supposed to sit straight, you know, the do's and don'ts. But not technology sharing. You understand?
But the Japanese went to the West, learned the technology, came and applied it at home, and to their best interests, and their morals and cultures were maintained. So what I'm saying is that church leaders today should talk about the issue of parents guiding their children on the right path, one, through faith, two, the best use of the technology that we have, because technology is all over. AI is taking over the world by storm. Today we are going to see so many things that are going to happen. So how do we prepare our children for the future? Is by guiding them before they go into that mess. Yes.
All right, that's an interesting one, and of course we're using this particular day because it's heavily immersed in religion, faith, and the need to be able to lead, especially those that are led by the church leaders in a good way. You spoke about the fact that going to a place and picking morals, others, no doubt, pick good way of doing things, including the reverse engineering of the technology. Is it possible, and I'll be very candid about this, that the church has failed to distinguish or clearly put religion there and culture here in order for them to find some sort of neutral ground on which to move? Because culture keeps slipping into religion and threatening it, while religion keeps encumbering people from practicing and going ahead with the culture. How do we navigate that very, very tight rope?
I think that the teachings of religion, in whatever faith that you believe in, they keep on contradicting the cultural norms of a given society.
True.
When you come to the Muslim faith, there are so many things that contradict the culture here in the central region in Buganda. But how do we find a common ground? Is always knowing where you end, keeping our lanes, not going into the other one's lane. For example, even if you do not agree with a certain practice, we should always have a way of packaging the message that it does not hurt the other person. For example, there are so many things that Buganda does, that the Buganda culture promotes, that many faiths do not believe in. Why do you call them satanic and whatever? Just say that that's their belief. Ours is this one. You understand?
Yeah.
Instead of demonizing and abusing and degrading and dehumanizing the other one, you only teach what your faith promotes or teaches.
Well, some practices have to be denounced, Mr. Siraj.
You denounce, but you denounce.
We shouldn't have any kind words.
You denounce, but you do not demonize, because it's a belief. People are believing in it. You only say that this one hurts people in a way that in future they will have problems like cancer, this and this and this and this. So it will have a negative effect on the community or in the generations to come. So we better say that it should not be practiced. And even reaching out, because one thing that the one thing that is interesting, that most of these cultures, most of these norms, the Kabaka or the leader has a right to change some of them and say that this one is old-fashioned, so today we cannot have it. Let's remove this one. You understand? So I think even reaching out to the leaders could be a better way of putting out the message and even promoting cohesion or good coexistence from within.
Let's talk about the education that was introduced back in the day. Is it true that the education that was introduced by these missionaries was meant to keep Africa and Africans underdeveloped, in the dark?
Because if you look at the history of the education that we have today, that missionaries came here, they did not have servants as secretaries and clerks and people that will help them. So they trained the Africans not because they wanted them to develop, but as helpers, people that would help them out in some of the services they could not offer themselves. For example, they trained them as interpreters, they trained them as secretaries, they trained them as clerks for them, not as a way of promoting them to advance through education. Secondly, they wanted them to help them in their missionary work. That you go preach this, and that's why you see religion is so strong in the African community, in the black community, than it is in the Western community, or both in Arab and the West.
Indeed.
You know, many whites do not go to church. Today, churches I was seeing on BBC, and many churches are empty. People do not go to church to pray, and you would assume that the Anglican, the Anglican Church is based in Canterbury, in England. When you go to Rome today, you understand. So the way how we believe, we Africans, is quite different from where these faith or religions came from.
Because for them, when they heard that the Pope was now blessing gay people, of course, some white people were skeptical. They were like, what is happening now? Don't they remember Sodom and Gomorrah? But for the Africans, we never ask questions.
Yeah, for us,
you understand? But
all right.
As the Pope blesses them, we're like, okay, we shall continue with this religion.
But I saw the Archbishop of Kampala, the Archbishop Semogede. He had so many things to talk about. The chairman of the Episcopal Council also had reservations. But anyway,
so talk to us about the dangers of continuing with such a curriculum that was meant to undermine us.
I think over time,
is that the reason we are coming up with a bad crop of leaders?
Governments have begun realizing that the curriculum that was designed by the colonials does not apply, or is archaic or outdated today. That's why you hear new curriculums being coming up where they train hands-on skills and others. But I personally believe there is no reason, much as people will argue that people studying about the prairies and other topics that they used to study, so that people can borrow a leaf and also see how they can apply it here, or they can develop like the way those ones developed. But history has shown that we failed to pick lessons from them so that we can apply them here. But rather, people have been just memorizing and for passing exams, and after school they drop that. So I believe the curriculum that was designed by the colonials does not apply. They should be dropped, and we should find our own curriculum and the way how we train our children.
That can cater for African needs.
For sure, for our problems.
Do you envisage that happening, Chris Igenyi? A curriculum that is only focusing on African issues?
No, I don't see that happening, because what is our foundation for knowledge? Our foundation for knowledge was one that was not anchored on our ability to store knowledge.
Indeed.
We memorize knowledge as Africans, and as we go on developing curricula and ways of thinking and doing things, we keep going into that kind of trouble because we did not register some sort of bank where this information can be retrieved and then used to be able to help the next generation of thought. And that is where you, for example, find that people who say we should study in our local languages, I was asking the other day, how do you call an iota in Uganda?
That aside, your CV is in English.
Yeah. But okay, to come up with that particular name. The amount of veins and interconnectedness of the human body to come up in our local languages with every aspect of it and give it a name will require people who are linguists to come up with a whole new language, no doubt. And that would be offering the foundation for education and knowledge.
Even when you say that, when you make it, give an argument from that angle, that some words or some things cannot be translated into the local language, that calls for the development of that language as well. Because when people begin realizing that there is a problem in translating some of the words,
that is right.
They will find ways of naming them. You understand? Because when you look at countries like Japan, China, Russia, and other countries that have developed, they've always stick to their languages.
They stick to
Someone was telling me that in Japan, if you put on their TV stations and begin looking out, you'll always see art on each and every station being celebrated. People who are competing on how to design a car, how to design a car, anything in art that one can design. They're always rewarded because TV 70 or 80% is in that. You understand? Entertainment and other things would always occupy a smaller percentage of what the TV station produces or gives out to the content that it gives out to its audience. So people are always taken into that. And I'm telling you, innovations and many other things will come up as a reason of the information that is being fed into them. So likewise, I personally believe that Africans, is high time for us to come up with local solutions to the problems that we have here in terms of education. Education should be based or focused on to solving problems that are prevalent in the country. For example, someone was telling me that in Japan, the issue of job seeking is a good thing for them. Why? Because they train people saying that today we need engineers in this field. So they train people in that field that they need. Today we need scientists in this. You understand? So if you say that people are being trained to be job seekers, not job creators, how are they going to create jobs? You train them according to the demand of the market in which they are going into.
Okay.
So that's what I believe.
Here you are teaching your kids mining in South Africa, where they've never been. But of course, all right. we can, before we dip into other issues, you can also talk about the fact that religion was introduced in Uganda as a ruse to actually bring about colonization. Talk to us about that. Is it true?
There are so many theories, there are so many schools of thoughts.
Yes. But how do you see it? That's the most important thing.
There are so many schools of thoughts that we can always say. But because I can say that it is a yes, and a no. Why do I say so? That it's a yes that the missionaries in one hand held a Bible, in the other hand they had a gun.
Indeed.
You understand? A gun to tame these people, to subdue them, so that they can always listen to them. Where did the colonials emerge from? They came on the backs of the missionaries. So if someone says that religion was introduced at the same time as a political tool to subdue people so that they can be colonized, there's no way you can refute that as well.
Because it was Bishop Tucker who went to Britain, Parliament, made the plea and said, you know what, if you don't go back in Uganda and make it a protectorate, the Catholics are going to take it, all the Muslims are going to take it. So the only form of security they had was to create a protectorate within Uganda.
For sure.
Indeed.
All right, thank you very much, Siraji Chifampa Sheikh from the Jamia Dawat Salafia sect.
It comes with a wealth of information on these things.
A wealth of information, no doubt about it. But we are most emboldened by the fact that Muslims do not venerate martyrs. It's a case that would infringe on their own faith in God, no doubt. I do want to inform you that our team on ground at the Nabugongo Martyrs Shrine, that's the Catholic and of course the Anglican site, are putting together everything that is needed in order for them to give us updates on what exactly is happening. Earlier, you must have watched the Bishop Pony Wokorach making his way as he was helped there to the podium. Of course, he is an elderly gentleman and one that needs all the help that he can get in order to ensure that those very elaborate stairs are comfortable for him. The site at the Anglican, the site, which is the Anglican, is one that is looking really magnificent. It's something that has been put together over the last few years. Efforts to continue to beautify these places are ongoing, and many times as you come closer, you might be told to either use a different route from the one that you were accustomed to. That is because the organizers have a particular thing that is being put together in that stead. So obey, but most importantly, follow the rules. A security blanket has been put in place, so any checks that are conducted are for your own good. Please do not go around asking people whether they know you and seeking to be reminded of whether you know yourself too. It is not a good citizen that does that. You should be able to allow the security officers and the team to be able to ensure that the process is smooth.
So
now there has been a master plan.
Job, yeah.
There has been a master plan that was put together, as far as the security is concerned at Namgombo. Let me just take our audience through what exactly this is, and then later we shall come back with our live updates from the team that is on the ground.